Hello, Feisty friends. Sarah Gross here, founder and CEO of Feisty Media. So before the podcast starts, I wanted to jump in and tell you about our brand new strength training club that is launching in the new year. Like so many of our offers, we created this one with you in mind because many of you have been asking for more guidance about what it means to lift heavy. We all know the advantages of being strong for longevity, bone density, body composition. We want to feel strong and capable, but it can be hard to know where to start. Or maybe some of you have been doing the same strength routine for months or years and are looking to switch it up for faster gains. If that sounds like you, I highly recommend the Feisty Strong Barbell Club, which is a 12-week community strength training program designed for women who want real coaching, expert barbell programming, and the confidence to take up the space you deserve in the barbell section of the gym. It includes 3 strength workouts per week, optional HIIT workouts as finishers, and a community of supportive women to share the journey with. You will get monthly coaching calls, weekly form reviews on your lifting technique, guest experts, and thoughtful guidance from Feisty head strength coach Cassie Neiman. You'll learn the foundational barbell lifts, gain confidence under the bar, and train with a plan that meets you where you are at. So if you're barbell curious or looking for a new routine or a reason to get started with strength training, this is the program for you. To learn more about the Feisty Strong Barbell Club, just click the link in the show notes. 2026 is the year we get strong together.
All right, we are back for episode 2. We are here with Katie and Joanne, and we do have an interview today from USAT CEO Vic Brumfield. But first, we're going to talk about, there was 1 million races this past weekend, like 1 million. I feel like, I don't know if you guys watch all them. So I asked you guys to pick kind of what stood out to you, and Joanne's in a list of like 7 picks.
No exaggeration, Kelly. It's like saying that the last week went so fast it was supersonic. I can't believe we're back on episode 2. Look, there was so much racing. I was actually working myself at the weekend, so I didn't see it all, but I obviously picked up some of the news feeds along the way. And I think my top pick has to be Lucy Charles-Barclay taking a significant win in Lanzarote, the Club of Santa Ironman. In Lanzarote, it was her first pro race back in 2016 and she finished 3rd. And she took her very first pro win, I believe, in 2017 in Lanzarote. And you could just see on the coverage that we saw on the gram and on Facebook how she just dominated that race. Again, similar to her World Championship win in Kona, it was from gun to tape, unreal racing. And it would be remiss of me, though, not to mention Aix-en-Provence, the Pro Series race. Marjolaine had an unreal race on the day as well. But for me, the 2 standout performances really were Lizzie Rayner, who finished in 2nd place, who's from the UK. And I was delighted to see Nikki Bartlett back on a start line and on a finish line because she hasn't had a race so far this season. So she did really well to finish 5th in her first race of the season. So very proud of Nikki Bartlett and Lizzie Rayner from the UK. So it's all about the UK girls this weekend.
I feel like you just picked highlights that were just British athletes.
Well, I did mention Marjolaine, who really, be racing in Aix-en-Provence. It was probably like a home crowd racing in France, lifting her all the way to the finish. And then we've just realized that one of the highlights that I picked has just shown up on my news feed now, but it was the Himalayan Xtri, and Nikola Korbova, I think is how you pronounce her name, from Slovakia, actually became the first woman to ever win an Xtri event. And some of the descriptions in the article that I've seen today on Triathlete magazine said the 26,500 foot tall Annapurna mountain range provided a breathtaking backdrop to the whole event, which had 21,000 grueling feet of overall elevation gain, enough to scare the bravest man or woman in the world. 138 miles of triathlon racing. And she was the first woman across the line and also the first woman ever to win an Xtri race. That's incredible.
Yeah, I understand, because I had a friend racing it, shout out if she's listening, and she was messaging me. I understand no woman had made, in the Himalayan Xtri, you want to make it to, there's a bell or the top. And no woman had ever made it to the top because there's time cutoffs. And my friend made it by 30 seconds or something, but 3 women made it that weekend. And then this woman was the first woman to win one of these overall. Like she beat all the men too. So they're making a whole movie about it apparently. So you'll be able to watch.
Oh, wow. But you know what I think is quite interesting is she apparently had no background in triathlon. And her swim wasn't great. I don't want to give away all the details that are on the article, but her swim, by her own admission, wasn't great. But wow, I mean, 138 miles, 21,000 feet of elevation or of elevation gain. That's insane.
Maybe it's like when Chrissy used to bike around Nepal and then came over and was like, oh, it turns out I'm good at triathlon. Maybe it's like that.
She'll be the biggest difference between going from long distance to short course if she goes from this.
All right. Well, we switched now. Katie's picks are short.
Yeah. Now I pick her for the next year's. No, Xtapa was on my radar, but mainly because we didn't have any like super standout performances, but there were 4 USA women in the top 10 of America's Cup, which had 47 athletes on it, which I thought it was just like really cool to see the pipeline of athletes continuing to grow. And all of them came from a running background. So they all went to school and ran, which was also kind of interesting to me. But the bigger race for the World Triathlon side of things was Yokohama. And I know you had also said that you picked Jeanne as one of your highlights, who got her first win and first podium, I'm like pretty sure, for the World Triathlon Championship Series, which to me just opens it up for her like confidence that she can now win and be on the podium. I just expect to see her more consistently there.
What is it like to get your first, I'm asking you, what is it like to get your first WTCS? I know they used to be called something else before, but your first, podium and first win.
Yeah, I think it's just such a breakthrough because for so long, athletes are just off the podium, or just like consistently top 10. So for me, like I got consistent podiums, and then it took me so long to get my first win, or it felt like a long time at the time. But it definitely made a difference. Just once I broke that barrier of getting onto the podium, then I was more consistently on the podium and figuring out how to do that with different styles and different types of racing and courses and dynamics within the race. So that'll be, Yokohama was a miserable race for them. It was just like pouring down rain. And so it'll just be interesting to see how that translates and continue. But she's been showing this for like the last 4 years of just kind of like working her way up.
Yeah, because it was, middle of the night here, but I was watching clips later and it was pouring rain. Like Cassandra crashed. And it was one of those crashes where you can't even see exactly what went wrong. Your wheel just sort of slips out. So yeah, I think it might have been...
Was there something over the cobbles? Was there cobbles or something? That's what it looked like from the clip, or that like there was something covering a bit of the road, or maybe I was mistaken, but...
I think it's kind of like a transition aspect of the course, but I think she just got out of her saddle a little bit too early, and when she did, her wheel just slipped. But it was extra sad because she had just mentioned on, I think it was the press conference or something, that last year she had crashed. And so that she was just hoping she didn't do that again.
Sometimes it's hard to tell exactly what causes, at the Paris race, right? Like back at the Olympics last year, it poured rain right before you guys raced. And then I was standing right at that corner where everybody was crashing and you couldn't even see what was causing them to crash. You kind of just... It's like a bad wheel, a bad slip. It was rough.
Well, and in Yokohama, they actually took out a whole section because of the rain that they normally have. It's called through the brick warehouse, but they weren't planning on taking it out. And then I guess last minute they decided it was going to be too dangerous to go through. But I think that probably was the right call to avoid some crashes. I've crashed there.
Katie, can I come back to your answer there to Kelly, just about, the racing and the podium, what it felt like to, get your first win. You mentioned there that you were getting on the podiums and then you just had to keep that consistency going. But what shifted or what changed from being second or third on a podium to then being first, to crossing the line and breaking the tape? Was there a shift? Was there a change? Or what was different in those races that you won versus coming second or third?
Well, the first one I won was actually in 2016, right before Rio, and it was in Hamburg. I don't really know. I think it just I started realizing my strength as an athlete, and that certainly helped. But then I didn't win another one until 2019, I want to say. So there was like a 3-year dry spell. And then the little bit for me was just like, I'd started racing. My first draft legal race was in 2013. So like, it was also just kind of growing in the sport and learning the sport for the first bit. So, and then really working on the skills component and how to actually race to my strengths. But race a bit smarter. Although like my smartness was still like just swim as hard as I could, bike as hard as I could, and run as hard as I could.
I think that's a strategy. Just go as hard as you can.
That was my favorite strategy. But I think really it just took like finding that confidence and continuing like building the fitness level and having the engine to be able to like race like that. And then also be confident if it wasn't that type of race, if it wasn't a breakaway and if it was a run race, like could I still be on the podium or win?
I've talked to like a few athletes about who, if you're consistently 4th or 5th or 6th or 7th, clearly you're capable of being 2nd, or then how much of that is just in your head then? How much is it like a mental, which, it's hard to say, I think.
I mean, so much goes into like, okay, once you get the fitness level and you're like up there, then it's like, okay, well now you're looking for that small percentage of like, I mean, again, for me, it was like bike skills, but I also started talking to a sports psychologist a lot more regularly, like visualizing. Because before 2016, I would talk to a sports psychologist kind of like reactively, like, oh my gosh, I need to talk to someone now. Like, and then it's like, okay, we have a date every month and I'm going to talk to my sports psychologist every single month, no matter how I feel. But I really thought like, yeah, my confidence was always in my preparation and like my ability to like break down the race and adapt to whatever it was. So when you're at the top, that's what you need to like find and be able to be consistent when things are going wrong, whether that's in training or racing. I think there's just no excuses for anything. It's like, okay, that did this, but let's reflect and see how we can move forward to be better.
The other interesting result at Yokohama, it was Gwen was in 4th, which I think is it her highest at a WTCS since she's come back? Yeah. And I think so, right?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. People are nodding. Okay. And then, and she's obviously also like improved over the last, I guess it's almost 3 years now. You have to I don't know if that means she's like totally back, like we'll see again in 2 weeks, I guess. There's so many WTCSs, but it was interesting.
Yeah. And I think her just getting the taste for how close she was also, she obviously knows how to race at a top level and knows how to win, win a gold medal. So I think for her, the challenge is just coming back to like a completely different, I don't know if I'd say it's a different dynamic, but the sport has just changed since 2016 and the athletes have changed. So for her, she's relearning a lot of that. And I wouldn't think that she's like super proud of how she executed the race before the run, but just how she was able to like move herself up during the bike and then also on the run, like continuing to stick her nose in it so that she knows that she's getting closer and she'll be able to be on the podium again.
Yeah, because we do have another WTCS. It's a new one. I can't pronounce it, in Italy, like next weekend.
I was Giro.
But
that could be wrong too. That's just phonetics.
You need to get on to Duolingo.
So Ivan this morning was like, if Duolingo worked, more people would be bilingual. This was a thought I had randomly. Anyway. But we do have another WTCS in 2 weeks. And then they just start coming. There's just a lot more than that. We had a big gap here, and now there's a lot more.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see how like it all plays out. It's been such a big gap since Abu Dhabi. And this is a new course. From what I hear, it's not very... There's places on Sardinia where it's like quite hilly and apparently they're not doing too much. It's just kind of a rolling course, but it'll still be interesting to see like how much the rain played into Yokohama's results. And I mean, it's just, a different course, a different race.
For sure. And I mean, I feel like Joanne just blew through a whole bunch of races, but there was a lot of races. The other thing that stood out to me was, okay, so as we're recording this Wednesday, it's cycling nationals here in the US. And there's a couple triathletes who were supposed to race it this morning. I think Taylor Knibb ended up not racing because she just has too busy a schedule. But there were a few other pro triathletes on the calendar. And then we saw Paula Findlay last year do the Canadian time. And I was like, is this just becoming normal? Are there more and more triathletes? We saw Alex G do the London Marathon. Cassandra Beaugrand ran like a French 5K record, I think. Yeah, something like that. So I feel like, is everybody just doing like everything now?
Well, I feel like in triathlon, especially in, well, maybe it goes both for long course too, but speaking from the World Triathlon perspective, you kind of just have to be good. Like, you have to be the best in like all three disciplines if you want to make it on the world scene. And I think that's what people like to do, is kind of like test where they level up against other people. And also just after the Olympics, like getting a break from triathlon before leading into like LA is probably a little piece of it too. But even so, I think like, didn't Lucy do like
a swim meet?
And yeah, like, so I think people just like to mix it up, especially when there was that huge gap in racing for like us for draft legal stuff.
Yeah, I saw.
But I even think, sorry, Kelly, I think here, in terms of, we've seen some of our Irish Olympic rowers have gone and done an Ironman 70.3 because they were cycling during their rowing preparation for the Olympics, so they're kind of dabbling in these other sports that they're kind of circling around. They're not looking to be champions in those new sports that they're doing, certainly when they're looking at an Olympic cycle into LA in 2028. But there is a little bit of a crossover. And I actually just noticed as well this week, I think it was Heather Jackson with her gravel racing at the Stettina's pay dirt race in Carson City in the States. That's Nevada, I think. So where is it? Carson City. My geography of the US isn't the best. But yeah, so I mean, she switched across from a very successful career as a long distance Ironman athlete and is now absolutely smashing it at gravel racing. And I'm going to come back to Europe again to Tessa Cortecas from the Netherlands. She was based in Lanzarote, and she switched out from long distance Ironman racing to MTB racing. And she is absolutely smashing it with the Cannondale ISB Sport team. They won the Four Islands epic race in Croatia just a few weeks ago that I was at, and she had a great race at the Cape Epic as well. So, moving across to the sports, I think we see it because maybe people sometimes, and I'm not saying about any of the ones that I've mentioned before, but they're looking for something different to fulfill them. They've gotten to a certain point within their professional triathlete career, and there's something else. Maybe the strongest element of their swim, bike, run is what's driving them forward into a new opportunity, a new career. And isn't it wonderful that our sport of triathlon allows people to come into the sport who are excellent across swim, bike, or run, and then allows them to exit the sport excellent across a swim, bike, or run and pursue another career? Like, it's something very special about the sport, really, when you think about it.
Like Georgia Taylor Brown right now, doing a lot of cycling races, but she's also doing cross country running as well. So like, she's exactly what you're saying. She hasn't done a swim meet that I know of, though.
No. She was, but
we might have to convince her.
I was going to say, her and Maya Kingma were even training with one of the pro cycling teams. They went to team camp. I don't remember which one. But you made me laugh about Heather, because I ran it after Heather Jackson's last Kona. I ran into her in the bathroom in the hotel, and she was like, "I'm done swimming, Kelly. Not swimming anymore." I was like, "Okay then." So she's also racing Western States, the running race, in a month. So yeah, she's gone full in on the biking and the running. So,
but it just doesn't it go to show though that like at an elite level and at a professional level, the miles that you can put in across your swim, bike, or run can stand to you to create further opportunities, because the athletes that we see coming through are such a huge inspiration and advocates for the sport. We still love to see them in our sport, but actually we love to see them in other sports as well, because it continues their involvement in sport and advocacy to encourage more people to actually just simply be active.
I think we're a little proud too. And like the triathlete, we're like, yeah, that triathlete beat all those runners.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's cool. It is cool.
Katie, you mentioned Georgia Taylor. I saw she did the Tracka, which is like the really, really big gravel race over in Europe. Joanne, have you been to this? Is this like a big deal there?
It is a big deal, but no, I haven't been there. And actually, a friend of mine came third in the Tracka a couple of years ago. Like, it's a tough race. There's a good crew from Ireland went over, actually from a little town up the next county over. There was a big gang of them went over. It's incredible. It's like probably the biggest event of its kind in Europe. hugely popular.
Did Alistair do it too?
Alistair did. I was going to say, and with and Ruth Aspel.
But he didn't finish. I don't think. I think he got a. Did he get a mechanical or something? Yeah, that's the unfortunate piece around all that gravel racing and that off-road racing pieces. I think there's probably more mechanical issues than there are athlete injury issues on those courses.
I saw somebody started a like a running list of all the triathletes who are injured right now, and I was making fun because I was like, "There's no way you could actually keep this updated." It's like everybody all the time,
unless you're going to pop in who's back.
So anyway, it did make me laugh. But I mean, Katie, you're doing a lot of. Obviously, you have your whole team now and your whole squad, and I also feel like somebody who's doing a swim meet or doing a running race, it's also good for development. I know, like I know some of the coaches have their younger athletes go and do a bike race to like work on skills and stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like a lot of the athletes are doing like crit racing, whether it's a race that has a name or whether it's just like the evening crits or group rides. Like I know for our guys and gals, like we plan on putting them in the group rides here because that's the most race simulation you'll get for draft legal racing. Because I mean, you're in a training group, you just get a little too nice and comfortable with each other. You're like flicking your elbow, whoever's strongest is pulling a little longer. Like it's a lot more predictable. And I think you can add in an element of unpredictability, but it's still not the same as, doing a group ride with a whole bunch of athletes who like, that's the kind of their main session for every week. And the same with the running and the swimming. I see less do swim meets, and I don't know if that's just like harder to put into your schedule, or maybe I just don't follow it quite as closely. That could definitely be the case. But definitely like road racing and even like the track meets, having athletes come in and out of is just pretty fun to watch. And it breaks up a long training base too, without necessarily needing to do a triathlon. If you have things that are relatively close to you, it can work to just kind of give your mind a little bit of a break from the triathlon training.
Sure. How many athletes do you guys have now? I know you're like getting up and running still.
Yeah, still up and running. We have 4 basically on the ground here, and then another one comes next week, and then another one the month after, and then we'll have 7 more for the month of July, so like 15. But they're only here for July for like a little bit of a summer sharpeners program, as Tommy calls it. He's in charge of that one because our baby's due July 5th, and I was like, oh, what perfect. Perfect timing. You become more concerned about him being there to help the athletes than him being here to help with our baby. But that's okay.
Yeah. You can have like your mom help with the baby. Tommy can coach the athletes.
Yeah, exactly. And I was talking to, so we actually have a running group here, Puma Elite, where they were mentioning to me when we had Kimball, they're like, you were here when he was 4 days old. And I was like, I have no recollection of that. But apparently I was, and they remember, and I'm like, okay. So I think in my head, you're like out for so much longer. But as you're experiencing, you get moving pretty fast.
I did not get moving pretty fast.
No, that's a separate.
Kelly, we didn't actually get an update of what training you did this week. We heard last week a little bit of what you did. So what did you get done this week?
Oh, you're asking me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, as people like, so I had a C-section 12 weeks ago, and so I jogged a minute and walked 4 minutes. For 5 times.
But that's good. That's perfect.
Yeah, it's as we were talking about before. It's funny, and I think probably plenty of people know this. Like, I have a friend who had a kid a week ago, and she's already out doing hikes, and that took me like a month and a half to get to that point, right? So I think it just depends on if you had a C-section, if you had a non-complicated birth, like all kinds of things. So
well, and I think we were mentioning this before, but I found actually pregnancy and postpartum comparison far harder than any, like comparing myself to any athlete during my professional career. It's just like, what am I doing when I'm pregnant, and seeing all these other like women like just really thrive, and like I've barely been exercising, and then like coming back, even you're like, they came back so fast. So don't compare yourself to others is my tip.
You've got to do what's right for you and look after your body.
Yeah, it's there are so many athletes though who are pregnant now, like way more, and I don't think it's just like our imagination. I think it's because of policies changing, because of research changing, and there's so many triathletes right now.
I mean, like Sophie Coldwell just had her baby, Emma Box just had her baby, Lucy Hall just had her baby. like I'm like, holy moly, everybody's There's a lot of women pregnant right now.
Sky and Holly are both coming back. Emma Pallant Brown is pregnant right now. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. All these mini triathletes that are going to come and change the world again. The next generation coming through.
That it'll be something. I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of, development and growing the sport too, because we do have an interview with USA Triathlon President Vic Brumfield. And I talked to her a bunch about their annual report, which has a whole bunch of numbers, but kind of it's just like, is the sport growing? How are we doing? And then what they plan to do. And it's like top line. After this, I want to ask you guys, do you feel like the sport's growing? Do you feel good about it? Does it seem healthy to you?
I think yes and no. I actually think from my perspective, it feels like non-draft is growing more significantly than draft legal at this point. And I don't know, is that a fair? I don't know what you guys would think. I mean, that's probably from being more in tune with like the longer course side. But to me, it's, I think we touched on it about last time, but I don't love how we used to have the highest level of racing in the US and now we don't. And like America, even really any world triathlon draft legal racing, we have like one race in the whole US for the year. So, and then Super Tri comes, which I think helps, but I'd love to see that grow more. And in terms of like triathlon as a whole, to me it has, but I think that's because when I first got started, I had no idea anything about triathlon. So I don't know if it's just like, I just know more and more people. And now like getting in from being an elite athlete to like coaching, like now it feels like there's so many more, like when we look at the youth, it's like, wow, like those races are selling out. Like that's so cool. But
you're like, wow, now everyone I know is a triathlete.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just the people I've now surrounded myself and yeah.
Yeah, I think it's I think you're probably right. I mean, I wouldn't think there's a lot of draft legal racing here in Ireland or the UK, and I think I touched on that last week, but I do think that at a grassroots level, the sport, definitely the base of the sport is growing, and hopefully that feeds up for Ireland into LA and beyond for the Olympics, because we didn't have any athletes at Paris in the Olympics, but we had some Paralympians, which was a magnificent milestone for the country to have our Paralympians in Paris. But one of the big news items for triathlon, as I mentioned the last time as well, triathlon is only a small sport. It's a growing sport in Ireland. To put into context, we only had about 18,000 members in the country. I think USA Triathlon has about 300,000 from what I was looking at. That's a massive difference, I suppose, in terms of numbers of athletes. I know the countries are completely different in terms of the size of them and the population, but it's a very small, marginalized sport, but it is becoming more mainstream. And in Ireland, it actually is the fastest growing sport in the country, according to reports that I've seen. But definitely from a grassroots level, there's a lot more people getting involved. And a big endorsement for the sport in Ireland was the opening of a training centre in Limerick, which is not in the capital, but it's in a really good part of the country where some of our Olympians have come out of, not just across triathlon, but in other sports as well. So it was a big endorsement for the sport in Ireland to get that new training centre set up. And you look at the impact, I suppose, that the Olympics has on the sport of triathlon. I know coming into Paris last year, races in France got a big push because they knew the triathlon was coming. Same with the mixed team relay before and after Tokyo. Mainly after Tokyo, people understood what the mixed team relay was, and it's so short. People are like, oh, I could do that, not realizing how fast it is. But it's not an Ironman. It's not like your whole day and your whole life is taken up by this very short race. So I do think that triathlon in Ireland is definitely in a healthy position. More members, more clubs, more sanctioned races, more opportunity for people to get involved in the sport, and lots of programs to support, women, children, disadvantaged areas, and all the key areas where you'd like to see more triathlon happening, but for whatever reason, it hasn't happened. So, they would have schools programs. They've got young leadership programs as well for some of the young triathletes coming through now. There's a leadership program between a couple of the governing bodies in Ireland actually launched last week. So it allows the young athletes to get involved in the sport and to have leadership positions within their sport as well, not just as an athlete, but actually in encouraging others to take up the sport within their own little communities or networks or whatever. So I think triathlon is in a good space in Ireland and possibly the UK, but very different landscape though to what you guys have in the States.
Yeah, in the UK, and I think Ireland, probably, like, you guys do focus so much more on the short course, and there is more of a which I think kind of comes from just where, like, there's more Olympic style racing. Like you mentioned, the Paris Olympics, I was in a big deal in France. The London Olympics were a big deal in the UK, and I think USAT is hoping LA Olympics will do that for us, because I think Tokyo, just with COVID and the time, didn't have the same
impact.
Right. So I think they're hoping LA will be.
But, I also think that, London was like, it's next door. Mm-hmm. It was like a home Olympics for us. So was Paris. Now the fact that you'll have you'll have LA actually in the country and on your doorstep, it can't but help not only triathlon, but so many other sports to gain traction with new members.
Yeah. I think one of the questions is, how do we do that? Right, Katie? Like, how do we make sure that people see that on TV and they want to do it?
Yeah. And I do think that's a big piece of it, is like, it's really hard to happen upon triathlon on TV in the US. Like, we moved into our house, and the mailman stopped me and he's like, are you Katie Zaferes? And I was like, yeah. He's like, the triathlete. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, how do you know? Like, because it's like a surprise. Right. And his was from Super Tri, which like really surprised me. But I think that's also, I don't know the history. Maybe Vic talks about it a little bit, but like World Triathlon isn't broadcasted on our mainstream media. So like you have to buy a triathlonlive.tv pass, and like that's like our family and friends, like teammates or people who are already in the triathlon community. It's not, besides the Olympics, it's not being broadcasted on just normal TV for someone just to be like, well, I guess I don't know how many people flick through the channels anymore, but like you wouldn't just like come upon it. You have to be like seeking it out. And even when you seek it out, it's still really hard. Like, I know what I'm doing and I know where I'm looking, and there's still races I'm like annoyed I can't find.
Oh yeah. My login, somehow when they update their website, my login doesn't work anymore. And now I like can't get in, and I'm like, oh, well.
Yeah. And so I feel like that's such a big piece. Like, I mean, you either have to be surrounded by your community or know someone who knows someone, which I did put as one of my things, because this only comes from Kimball does like the Healthy Kids running series. And the first day of the series, they said, bring your buddy to come race. And I was like, I don't know if a triathlon already does this, but I was like, how cool would it be if you just had a triathlon that was just like, come bring a buddy, come like for free, like someone who just hasn't done it before, just to get them exposed. I think that'd be really cool. But
that'd be cool.
And I think that's the key thing there as well is, I talked last week about everybody knows who Lucy Charles-Barclay is because her YouTube channel is so good. We all know who Lionel is. And I just picked the two of them. Their YouTube channels, their fan favorites. It's amazing. But we're already the converted, and the people who follow these athletes are the converted. So how do we hit Tom and Mary, who are living in a rural community by the sea, but have never cycled a bike or swam in a pool or did a little 5K? So how do we target and access the people who aren't exposed to the sport, who have no interest in turning on the Olympics, but have heard about this thing called a triathlon or an aquathon or whatever it is? I think so. Trying to access those people is a big, big job. I think it's really, really difficult. And I like that buddy idea. But then does your buddy for triathlon, is it realistic? Have they got a wetsuit? Have they got a bike? Have they got a pair of runners? So there's lots of barriers to entry to the sport beyond not having the time or not having access to a pool or water or whatever it is. There's actually the physical side of equipment as well.
Yeah. I saw a cool event they were doing, and this was like a mountain bike event, but it was like, you show up and we will, and this was sponsored by a brand, of course, but it was like, show up, you've never ridden a mountain bike before, we'll give you a bike, we'll give you all the gear so you can go out and like do this ride. And then it's kind of like, if you've ever gone skiing, where they do demos on ski days. So you could, and I had never done uphilling before, and they gave me like really nice ski. I'm a terrible skier, right? So you could do something like that, right? Where you had like bikes and people could test it. But the TV thing is a big thing. And this is actually something, Katie, I was thinking about, because in the US, Kona was always the thing people saw on TV. Like, that's why it's so big here. And you don't have that anymore because NBC ended their deal. And I don't know what's going to happen now, right? Like that, if that went away, and obviously the PTO is trying to sign new deals. That's like the whole big part of their mission. Super Tri has signed a bunch of TV deals, but it is how you reach people who aren't looking for it. Even though everyone cut the cord. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I just think even though nobody watches TV anymore or whatever, it's still how you reach people.
Well, like the first triathlon I ever saw was New York City Tri. Then that was like, it must have been like 2011, 2012. I don't know, somewhere feels way back. But it was on, like, it's crazy because it was on TV. And I always think of cycling races or even watching surfing because I don't think it's an engaging issue. Like if you think about cycling races, like people are so interested in following. There's like a lot of like time where
they're really boring. Yeah.
It's a lot of dead time. Or even like Tommy loves surfing, and I'm thinking most of the time they're just sitting on like their boards, like waiting for the wave. And of course they do have like a very cool aspect, but like there's a lot of downtime in it. So yeah. So I hope that changes. And I also think like having the storylines around the athletes so that people feel a connection, especially with like the Olympians who are going. I think just many people just wouldn't know who our Olympic team is or be able to really connect with them going into LA 2028. And I think USA Triathlon is already working on that, like having really professional videography and content so that people can start feeling connections with the athletes.
I think I'll have to go to America to film those or to record those podcasts though, Kelly. I'm just putting it out there now. I want a trip to the States. But I also think as well, like it's very hard to find the space, like within the sport, even with broadcasting. And I know the Ironman show isn't on NBC anymore, but like there's so many other sports that get so much other TV rights and get the airtime that even to kind of try and sift through the noise, it's very hard to get to triathlon. Very, very hard.
I was
and to get
clicking through the channels this weekend, and I think it has something to do with like changing media and like everybody signing sports deals because they're cheap. Like sports are cheap for TV broadcasters versus like scripted TV. Anyway, and there was so many sports, and I was like, "What are the Atlanta City Games? What is what?" Like it was just like all these things, and I ended up watching like reruns of Seinfeld because I was like, I can't even figure out what any of these are. So I think to your point, like it's hard to. Out of all of that, like, what are you going to watch? Yeah.
And then if you're not into sport, what would attract you to actually watching a triathlon at the Olympics? Like, why?
I think that's the knowing somebody aspect of it. Like, that would be, so we just have to make friends with everybody.
This is our plan for, what we'll tell Vic is just have your Olympians go out and meet everyone and then they'll watch. So.
But there was a piece, and I don't know, like, if this could have been done better or not, but the American women in particular have had like a lot of success at the Olympics, and then also with our mixed relay medal. And so I feel like being able to, pending LA going as well, being able to capitalize on that success like after the fact would be really helpful. And I don't know like the best model for that, but I always felt like not sufficiently used after the fact of medaling, because for a little bit it's like we make contact, but then it kind of just falls to the side, which is nice in a way because like there's no responsibility. But I do think it helps having like, especially because so much of our sport happens outside of the US, to then bring like a face of somebody who's doing well in the sport into the US and at like the youth triathlons or at like the nationals, age group nationals would be, maybe it's not as impactful as I think it is in my head, but we did a camp in Charlotte, and Tommy, we're friends with Paula. So there were women who were fans of Paula, and Tommy's like, well, why don't I just call her? And they're like, oh my goodness. And then he called her. And she picked up, they had a great mini conversation. And that was like their favorite part of the camp. It had nothing to do with like any of us, but it's just like being able to, connect with the people who if you are watching or hopefully like exposed to.
And like, I think that is, I do want to like hear from Vic. And I think that is one of the things she kind of talks about, or I talked about with her, is getting all that infrastructure set up for after LA. So there is somewhere when somebody sees it on TV, somewhere for them to bring a buddy, to go to a triathlon, to get a bike, to meet an Olympic, right? Like they need to have that ready. They can't like start building it after. So,
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, I do want to hear from Vic. Thank you guys for coming and chatting with us. We will be back next week with a guest. And then after this break, we will hear from USA Triathlon CEO Vic Brumfield.
Regular listeners of Feisty Podcasts will not be surprised to learn that for decades, running shoes have been researched, tested, and designed for men. Brands have relied on the shrink it and pink it approach to sell male shoes to female customers. But women's feet differ from men's in numerous ways. We have increased toe splay, higher arches, a more narrow heel, a lower ankle bone, upward angled toenails, and a rounded instep that is smaller in circumference. And because of all those differences, that is why we need HEDAs. HEDAs has unlocked the science behind women's biomechanics through dedicated research and creates running shoes specifically designed for women. So that means a lower heel collar to reduce rubbing on women's ankle bones, plate design to provide heel stability and to decelerate foot impact, rounded instep creating a snug fit through the middle to match the curvature of a woman's foot. Every feature is designed to give you more power and less problems. Breathability that lets your feet breathe easily mile after mile, plus fast drying tech that doesn't allow sweat to slow you down, adaptive stretch that molds to your foot like it was made just for you. I personally have been running in HEDAs for over 2 years, and from the first time I tried them, I knew that there was something different. They really felt like they were made for me. The shoes are super light but provide good cushioning, and they really support my very high arches. I honestly didn't think I would notice the difference after running for so many years in male model shoes, but I really did. So, try HEDAs for yourself today. Go to hedas.com and use the code STAYFEISTY for 20% off. That is Stay Feisty for 20% off at hedas.com. The link will, as always, be in the show notes. Hey Feisties, Sarah Gross here. We are so excited to be back with you here on our new, shiny, Feisty Triathlon podcast. Thank you for listening. I am so glad you're here. I want to tell you about one of the Feisty team's favorite recovery products, Previnex's Neurify Plus. I use the chocolate flavor myself every day to support my strength training. At Feisty, we only support brands that our team uses and products that deliver results we have seen for ourselves. Previnex's Neurify Plus is one of the best tasting plant-based and vegan shakes I've tried, and trust me, I've tried a lot. It contains balanced protein, carbs, and fat with comprehensive, high-quality micronutrients to help fuel your health. It also contains probiotics and digestive enzymes, so it's super easy to digest and doesn't give you that bloaty, gassy kind of effect that other protein products can produce. Unlike most supplement brands, Previnex tests everything with pharmaceutical-grade precision, and they also offer a 100% money-back guarantee. So try Neurify Plus or any Previnex product today, and you get 15% off your first order with the code FEISTYTRY at Previnex.com. That's FEISTYTRY for 15% off at Previnex.com. The link will be, as always, in the show notes.
Hate indoor training? We have great news. We have partnered with Wahoo to offer you a special deal on the Wahoo Kicker Run, a treadmill that will convert even the most diehard treadmill haters. Wahoo, the same company that revolutionized indoor cycling training, has literally broken the treadmill mold with this machine. With its special run-free mode, you can just hop on it and run. It naturally adjusts the pace as you do, just like you would outdoors. Speed up, slow down, it moves with you as you do. It can also simulate the terrain by subtly tilting the angle from side to side, so again you feel like you're really running, not locked into an unnatural pace or place. Or you can lock it in or even program workouts, so it does put you through your training paces, including both inclines and declines. And it's stunningly quiet, even when you're humming along full tilt. Even if you love training outdoors, the Kicker Run is a game changer for year-round training. No more trying to navigate ice-covered roads, awful weather, or worrying about going out in the dark. We love it, and we think you will too, so check it out. Click the link in the show notes and use the code FEISTY, all caps, one word, FEISTY, to get a free Headwind Smart Fan valued at $300 with the purchase of a Wahoo Kicker Run. That's code FEISTY to get a free fan when you purchase a Wahoo Kicker Run. We will drop a link in the show notes to make it a snap. And right now, Wahoo is running a massive sale of 25% off the Wahoo Kicker Run. So click that link and get yours today.
All right, we have Vic Brumfield, USA Triathlon CEO. Vic, I feel like every time I see you, you're training for something. What are you training for right now?
I'm training for multi-sport nationals in Omaha.
Are you going to do the sprint and the relay?
I'm doing all of them.
Oh.
It's like 7 races in 3 days or 4 days. It's so fun. It's the most fun you can have doing triathlon because all these races take like 20 minutes to an hour.
Right.
So it'll be really fun. Yeah, I'm going to do the mixed relay. Last year I did the mixed relay with 3 other people, 2 who had never done a race before in their lives. And we all did it on my bike with my helmet.
Were you guys like shared a
Yeah.
bike? Huh.
Yeah, I was the only person it fit. It was great. But it was fun.
You're like, why not? Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like whenever I hear about you training for Unbound or, something crazy, I'm like, how does she fit this into her schedule? What does the day to day of like a CEO of USA Triathlon look like? Like, how do you get all the triathloning in?
It's hard. I mean, this is probably what you experience in your life and what your listeners experience is I think about this all the time is I have to eliminate garbage miles from my life, right?
Okay.
Like, it's like there's no garbage miles. It's everything I do is intentional and focused and intervals. And so I get up every morning at 4:20, which has nothing to do with 4:20. It has everything to do with 4:15 is too early and 4:30 is too late. And get my workout in before work. And I'm also really intentional about going to bed early. So I make like a really great 80-year-old. I try and wind down around 8:30 every night.
Wow.
But I think one of the things I've learned, especially in the last couple of years in this role, is that I have to invest in sleep and recovery because I'm in a position where everything I say matters and the decisions I make have really significant impact and I can't be making them tired and not clear-minded. And so I think while training is really important, if I end up going to bed really late, I'll skip my workout in the morning because I have to be sharp.
Sure. And what does that, I mean, I think a lot of people are kind of like, what does the CEO do? So what does that day look like for you? Are you just sitting around making important decisions all day? Like what does it look like?
You do this and you do that. It's interesting. I think, look, what we do as a business is really, it's complex. It's complex because we're not an organization that has a single product or service that we manufacture or deliver to customers. We serve a lot of different stakeholders in very different ways. And so when you think about what we do, we're serving the businesses behind the sport. So coaches, clubs, race directors, we have that B2B model. We're serving the individual members in the sport, the people participating. So our B2C customers who are the athletes, whether they're 5 years old or 90 years old. And then we also have the side of the sport where we're investing. So we're putting forward dollars that nobody else would. So for example, investing in becoming an NCAA championship sport. That's the investment side. There's the Olympic and Paralympic side of identifying, developing, and putting forward the best athletes in the world in the Olympics and Paralympics. And then we also have to operate as a really functional business. So the reason why I lay all that out is it's really complex how we think about what we do and our different pillars as a business and making sure that we're all connected and moving forward with the same goals, but in really different ways. So what that means is I have to have a really comprehensive knowledge of what's happening every day across the business. I have to make sure the business is connecting to each other and that we're making decisions that are aligned with our strategic priorities. And so I deal with a lot of decision making every day.
Okay. What's been the hardest? Like you've been CEO for about 3 years now. What's been the hardest?
2.5.
2.5. What's been the biggest surprise and the hardest part?
I think the biggest surprise is the level of responsibility and pressure that I feel. I equate this to, and I'm curious if this correlates for you, is all of my friends who've had kids have all said that the way they experience life just changes overnight. Like the pressure and responsibility they feel like they have over how they live their lives and the decisions they make over how their kid lives their life is profound in a way that they never experienced before. And it's the only way. I don't have kids, but the way I think about it is when I was in my roles before, I had a huge sense of pride and ownership over the work that I did. But now the responsibility I have for our entire staff and delivering our mission and our customers, the way I feel about that is so different. It's just a very heightened sense of responsibility and pressure that I didn't feel before.
What's been hard about it? I mean, so I get how that, like, yeah, it could be surprising.
Yeah.
Out of all these different decisions you've had to make, what's been like the hardest part?
Making decisions that people don't agree with, but it's really hard, right?
Sure.
Like I've made a lot of really hard decisions. We've had to let go of employees. We've had to restructure our business. We've had to stop programs. All of those things that impact in real ways, specific individuals. And that's hard is because I always have to be thinking about the organization first. And those decisions impact people. And that's really hard.
Right. I can see that. We wanted to obviously talk about you guys came out with 2 reports recently. One was the annual report, which kind of is like, where are we at? And then one was the strategic, kind of where are we going?
Yes.
And the annual report, like, I'm not going to say a bunch of numbers at people because it's hard to listen to, but basically it said we are growing a little bit over last year, but we're not back to pre-COVID numbers.
Yep.
And we're seeing most of that growth was in one-day new members.
Mm-hmm.
It was like about 50% were one days, right? Is that about right?
Yeah. So look, first, I'm really proud. These are examples of what we've done over the last 2.5 years that I'm really proud of, that we were able to put out an annual report with real numbers that it can help impact decision-making in the sport. We haven't been able to do that effectively before. And so
why not?
I think, first of all, this is an operational thing. We had, 37 separate systems and databases that didn't talk. And it was really hard for us to actually understand what is happening in the sport, what are the reasons why those things are happening, so we can actually come forward with thoughtful dialogue around where are we going based on where we are now. And I think that was hard to do before. So just seeing that annual impact report is actually, it's a reflection of the incredible new team that we have in place and new systems we have in place so that we actually have the mechanisms to communicate out where the sport is and where it's going. So I think just putting out the annual impact report was a really big step forward for us. I think as far as what we're seeing in the sport, you're right. We're seeing new people come into the sport, which is really exciting. And we're seeing a lot of those new people come in at the shorter distance racing, which is really exciting. What we're also seeing is that most people don't race more than twice. And so what we're looking at is, okay, we know we have more people coming into the sport. We also haven't recovered fully to where we were pre-COVID, especially with female participation. So we're seeing men rebound stronger than women in the sport. And there's a lot of reasons why we think that may be happening. But we're also seeing them come back in shorter distances, which is promising for us because what we think about every day is how do we get more people into the sport? How do we keep them in the sport? And how do we help them progress in the sport? So that it's not just a one and done bucket list item. And so having this information, I think, is helpful in how we talk about with our race directors and our coaches and our clubs, opportunities for people to help bring more people in and especially more women.
2 questions jumped out to me there. Where are all these new people coming from? And if they're only doing 2 triathlons in a year, what else are they doing?
That's the world's biggest question. I don't know, pickleball?
I'm going to guess trail racing, gravel. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, we could anecdotally look back at when triathlon was booming in the early 2000s. I mean, we peaked around 2012. And it was when the sport started to decline. There's a lot of reasons why we could talk about why we think that was, but it was also this huge proliferation in endurance sports competition, right? You had Tough Mudders, you had color runs, you had half marathons, you had all these different trail running, you had all these different formats start to really come up into the system in a way that there was a lot more opportunity. You see that with gravel racing right now in cycling. So I think that's probably a natural pendulum swing. I think what is important with triathlon isn't just something you do once. If you really get the hook, it's a lifestyle. It's something you can always come back to. So I think that's where we're really centered is how do we help people experience the sport, not as something I just did, like I pop in and out of different sports, but something that identifies who I am and how I live my life. And to answer your question about where are they coming into the sport, the majority of people come into the sport in short course grassroots races. Okay. And that is actually, as we talk about, that's a bright spot, is new people coming in. A risk that we have in the sport is the decline in grassroots racing. Mm-hmm. And I think that if we decrease the pipeline in which they come in, I mean, ultimately that's going to pull through the longevity of the whole sport.
So basically most people do their first triathlon because it's, in their town, their friends doing it. It's local. They're not signing up most people don't sign up for their first one to like fly somewhere. And
no, you definitely have. I mean, look, those long distance races are super iconic and aspirational. So sure, you have people who are like, I'm having a big birthday, I'm having a big divorce, I'm having a big whatever, and I'm going to go do this big iconic thing to prove that I have the capacity to do it. Most people, though, like you said, whether it's a 5K, a local bike ride, or a triathlon, they're doing it because it's accessible to them and their community.
So out of all, like I looked at the report, all the data, all the different stuff, I feel like there's this broad question we've been asking for like 3 years, which is just like on a simple level, like, is triathlon okay? Like, is it healthy? Is it growing? Is it cool? Like,
yes.
What do we?
Yes.
Okay.
Hard, yes. Okay. Yeah, I think the sport is healthy, the sport is strong, and we're seeing a lot of optimism and growth in segments. And what we want to talk about is talking about where we see risks so that we can rally together in addressing those. I think the sport is growing. We have new people coming into the sport in really significant numbers, which is great. It's exactly what we need. What we then need to do is make sure that they feel comfortable, that they feel invited and included, and they see themselves coming back, and there's opportunity for them to come back, and there's community around keeping them engaged as they come and participate in the sport. If you live in a community where there's one race once a year, that makes it really hard to identify as a triathlete if you can only do it once a year, and you better hope that that weekend's free on your calendar every year.
Right. So what is USAT planning to do to, support these grassroots local races, which are so important, and to keep new people in? Like, how does USAT fit into that whole, let's keep people in the sport?
Yeah, a few ways. I think the first is one of the things we're seeing is maybe events have declined. And what we mean by an event is something that happens on a weekend, right? So I'm going to multi-sport nationals in Omaha. You don't need to qualify, by the way. Anybody can register. And I'm doing 7 races.
Okay.
So
7 races.
Yes. But they're like, last year I did it the week after Unbound. I was a disaster and I still finished them all. So the thing that we're seeing is while events may have shrunk, we are seeing an increase in races. So what that means is a race director is saying, okay, I have an event on a weekend. I'm going to add an aquathlon, a duathlon, a 5K run. And what we're seeing is actually, especially since I know your audience cares a lot about female participation is actually very close to 50-50 in all these other formats in short course racing. So what that's demonstrating is as we create new formats and new opportunities, more people are coming in because it gives them access, right? If I'm not a swimmer, I can still go do my first race. If I can't run because I have a knee injury, I can still go do my first race. So seeing more race formats is really important because that's just more entry points into the sport. So that's the first thing is how do we help more race directors add more formats? And by the way, multi-sport nationals was a really great way for us to build really great visibility around all these short course formats, which are super fun and very accessible, like the mixed relay or the super sprint or super sprint triathlon, super sprint duathlon. So that's one. The second is how can we help existing enthusiasts in the sport understand that they can become a race director? So if you are a club owner or a club member, that's how most triathlons started. When races started popping up in the 90s and early 2000s, it was a lot of passionate individuals who were like, hey, there's actually a really cool pool in my community that's near some trails. There's a really cool pond that I think we could swim in that's near some trails. And most races, by the way, have an average of 100 to 200 people in them. They're not huge, right?
Sure.
So helping new race directors understand that it's actually not that difficult to start a small grassroots race, which is how a lot of 5K started. How you talk about Unbound, that's how it started, right? It was some local friends getting together, starting, doing a route, and then it becomes this iconic adventure experience. And so helping people understand that they can put on an event and they can start small. And by the way, pool triathlons are a really great way to invite new people into the sport.
So when you say what USAT can do here is you're like helping people become race directors, giving them resources. And then on the other side, how are you supporting race directors? Because I feel like we hear a lot from race directors who are like not happy with USAT. Right?
Sure.
Right. So what can USAT actually do there?
Well, and this taps into our strategic plan, which you talked about, we recently launched. This is going to take time, but something that we're doing is we're investing at getting really good at marketing. So where I want to be, and we're getting better at it, but we're not there yet, is that you live in Northern California, that we are reaching out to you saying, hey, Kelly, we see that you haven't raced in a while. Here's 6 races in your area that you can drive to. We've negotiated price discounts for you at 3 of these. As soon as you do one, we are the ones who get in touch with you to say, congratulations, well done. Here's 3 more places you can race. Here's a club near you. Have you ever thought about getting a coach? So it's something that we've done okay. We need to be great at it. Like when I think about what USA Triathlon can be best in the world at, we can be best in the world at making sure we're connecting with every single participant of triathlon in the United States and encouraging them to continue their journey. We can be great at that. We can also be great at making sure we're delivering best practices and resources to new and existing race directors so that they can put on more and better races for more people in more places. Like those are the things that we can be really good at.
And when you just mentioned the strategic plan, so that's the other report you guys just came out with, which is, I feel like it doesn't sound like easy to understand for like a strategic plan. What are if you were going to pick, what are the 3 or 4 key parts of what you guys plan to do?
So the most important thing that we need to do, if we were to boil this down, it has 5 pillars, but the first 3 are the most important. The first is, how do we help race directors, coaches and clubs, but primarily race directors, right? Because they are the glue and the nucleus of our whole sport. How do we help them have more successful businesses? How do we make sure that the businesses in the sport, primarily race directors, coaches, and clubs, are more successful because of the support that we're giving them? That's the most important thing. And I can talk about how we're going to do that, but that's number 1. The second is going back to participation. How do we get more people to participate more often in the sport so that they can go from being a one and done to a triathlete, where it's how they identify and live their life? That's the second most important role that we can play. The third is we have to continue to invest in programming and infrastructure. Nobody else is going to do it, right? So we fund youth programming. We fund the Olympic and Paralympic programming. We fund collegiate programming. So where can we invest dollars, especially that we can tap into philanthropically, that help invest in infrastructure in a way that only we can? Like those are the most important things that we can be doing as an organization to help drive the sport.
And what are the things that you guys are going to invest? I mean, obviously you just said NCAA was a big one. We're still not really quite across that line. So are you guys still focused on NCAA? Are you focused on Paralympic development? There's been a big push on some of these youth programs kind of pipeline.
Yeah. So we have to invest in Olympic and Paralympic performance. That's part of our charter, right?
Sure.
We are underneath a congressional mandate to deliver Olympians and Paralympians to the games. So that is something that we'll always invest in. I think the way that we're investing in it needs to grow. And so the only way that we're going to get to the investment level of dollars that we need to be at is through philanthropy. So we're really focused on philanthropically supporting our athletes. And actually, a really great example, you may have seen John Reed. He's one of our development athletes who came in through our U23 program, and he just won a World Cup. And he got there because he was funded philanthropically through a philanthropically funded program.
I thought it was Reese just won a World Cup.
Oh, sorry, Reese Van. Yeah. Was it Reese? Sorry.
Yeah, it was Reese.
Sorry, Reese
Project Podium. Yeah.
Yes. So sorry.
Yes.
But Project Podium is entirely philanthropically funded.
Right.
And so these things are our Project Podium, our U23 program. These are all funded through private donor contributions. And that is how we're going to start to see the impact that we're looking for in the Olympic and Paralympic development program in a way that we could never keep up with Great Britain, that's funded through the lottery system,
Sure.
or other, we have zero government funding. And you look at our biggest competitors, they are all entirely government funded when it comes to their Olympic and Paralympic programs.
A big part of that, like strategic, I mean, it's called like Elevate 2028 plan is around the LA Olympics. You guys don't actually, you don't actually have a lot of say over the triathlon race. It's not really under your purview. So what is it that you guys can do? Because you just mentioned Britain, right? They saw a huge boom after Alistair won in London.
Yeah.
It'd be great if Taylor won in LA, right?
When Taylor wins,
happen, right?
yes. Yeah. So here's how I think about it. LA 28 is not a finish line, right? And so, yes, Olympic and Paralympic medals are important there, but the reason why we put LA 28 as this mile marker that we're working toward is really because the way we think about it is that is going to be a stage that everyone in the United States is watching. It is very likely that we will be one of the first events to medal in the games. It's going to be on what feels like your backyard on prime time in a way that everybody can watch, in a way that people were able to do in the UK. And the bounce that they got is because everybody watched it and then they're like, oh, I want to do that. And then they had a place to go. So the reason why we put that as a target is that we want to make sure that we have all of these things we want to invest in around growing races, growing participation, growing youth infrastructure, that all of that is successful and rolling so that when people are like, hey, that's cool, I want to do that, they have a place to go. That's the most important part of why LA matters in this plan.
So the actual, you guys, the move from Long Beach to Venice, I mean, did you know that was coming? You guys don't have a lot of say over that, right?
I didn't have a lot of say. I did have advance notice, not a lot of advance notice that it was coming. It's really interesting. The way that works is LA 28 is fully focused on how do we have the best venues for the best sport competition, but how do we do it in a way that actually works for the city in building these clusters? And how do you get all the sports and fit them into these clusters?
Right.
And I think there's a little bit of Tetrising around. When we had advanced conversations, I actually met with the LA 28 team as well as World Triathlon about a year ago, I think. I've lost track of time. I think it was about a year ago. It was December of last year or the year before. I can't even remember. And what we were looking at is this the best venue for the sport? And look, Long Beach is amazing. And I think what Super Tri's done with their race there has been phenomenal, especially if you're looking for a flat swim. It's really compelling. I think what's compelling about Venice, and this is something that we had both World Triathlon and USAT talked to LA 28 about, is the iconic imagery that you could capture is a part of that race, I think is also really exciting. And so I think that perspective was shared, but ultimately the decision came down to LA 28 with support of World Triathlon.
And so the goal, so if you were going to say, what are your biggest goals in the next year, the next 5 years? By LA 28, you want to have lots of grassroots races and clubs for people to go to. What is your biggest focus in the next year?
The biggest focus for me in the next year is getting all of our technology in place so that we can be a driver for that. Yeah. And so that's
very sexy and exciting.
Is it? Oh God. The last pillar, I talked about the first three, right? Businesses being successful, people participating and making sure we're investing. The last two pillars of our strat plan is we've got to be great from a brand and storytelling perspective. What is the imagery that we're showing and what are the stories we're serving up that makes everyone see themselves in the sport? That actually does really matter. And the last part is we've got to be a really well-operated business. And so what I think about, and this is what we've been doing over the last 2 years, is getting crystal clear at two things. What can we be great at as a business? Because I think look, when your mission is to serve the sport, that can be interpreted in a million different ways. And it is so easy to stretch yourself thin in saying yeah, I want to do that idea and I want to do that and I want to help them and I want to serve them and I really like them. So it's really hard to say, what are we actually the only organization uniquely positioned to be great at? And of those things, what has the biggest impact? And then let's only do that. That to me actually is the sexy part, is like, what is that sweet spot of what we can be great at that actually has a big impact? And what we've been doing over the last 2 years is getting crystal clear about that. So you see it in how we've restructured our business. You see it in where we're investing in technology, is we are only focused on those areas. And I think going back to your original question about what's hardest about being a CEO, it is really hard and exciting to make those big decisions, because I am literally transforming and restructuring an entire organization in a way that I believe will positively impact the sport. But there's always risk in that.
Sure.
And I think that goes back to the responsibility piece, is want to make sure that I'm making the right decisions that are data-driven and that we believe in.
What grade would you give yourself in your first 2.5 years?
Well, oh my God, if I were a man, A+. But because I'm not, and I'm my world's biggest critic, I think I'd give myself an A+ for commitment and passion and like being all in. I think as an organization and our ability to adapt to the change and take on new things. And I think I'd give ourselves a B+. I think we're doing really, really great work, but we have a lot more to do, and we can be even better.
When you are out, because I know you do a lot of races, right? Like you do a lot of stuff, just like when you're out, what do you hear from people? And do they realize you're CEO? Because I used to get, when I like editor triathlete, like people harass, giving me shit out on the race course. Do people realize you're CEO, and do they like yell criticisms at, like, what do you hear from them?
You know, it's so funny. I forget that it matters to people, because I'm just me, and I'm just out there like, embarrassed to be in spandex. And I forget that it does matter to people. I have never felt like I've had more friends or supporters ever than when I go to races. And I've always loved racing, but when I was at Oceanside, I missed it this year, but when I was there last year, it was the wildest thing. Like, people were cheering for me, like all along the course. And I've never felt more supported or uplifted. Huh. And there are definitely people out there who are critics. I think when I go to our national championships, where it's our specific audience of people who are dedicated to racing nationals and competing at the world triathlon, world age group level, I definitely get more constructive feedback. And there's definitely some people out there who are not fans at all. But I think overall I felt super supported and genuinely loved, which is crazy.
I got heckled all the time. I was walking an aid station once, and someone was like, you can't be walking.
Oh, well, that's because there's expectation for you to be talented and good. I'm a horrible athlete. So I did our winter nationals, Kelly. Oh my gosh. I was so slow that the timer left before I finished. So if you look up the results, my spot is 0. I got 0 place.
Well, I know, like you said, obviously there are people who have constructive feedback. What is the number one kind of issue, question, comment you hear from athletes out there?
I guess it depends on what audience we're talking about. Race directors, they just want to know what we're going to do to help them get more people in the races. That is their number one concern, because what I think participants don't understand is the vast majority of race directors are operating at a loss or break even or very, very small margins. And they are at constant risk of losing event permits. They're at constant risk of weather jeopardizing them even being able to host their event at all. And it's a very stressful, difficult business to be in. So they want to know, what are we doing to help them drive participation? To which I would say is, we are going to get great at marketing. We're going to get great at data so you can make better decisions. And we're going to get great at delivering resources and tools. We're okay. We're going to be great at it. From people out there participating in general, I think what they want to know is, why aren't there more races and why is it so expensive?
Right, sure.
That's probably what I hear from most in people participating is, I can't afford to go travel across the country to race. And why aren't there more races in my community? And why can't you make them more affordable for us? So yeah, it depends on who we're talking to.
And that is obviously a big issue. What do you tell people about why there aren't? Because there are places where all the races went away during the pandemic.
It's hard. I think that, look, this is something else that we want to be good at, and we're starting to do it a little bit, but is talking to municipalities and sports commissions about how do we help connect them with race operators in their communities? Because nothing showcases a city or a town better than a triathlon, right? You're showing their natural resources in a way that you don't ever see if you're going to a wrestling match in a hotel ballroom.
Sure.
And so I think that that's really important. And where cities are struggling is they are operating at deficits, and they can't afford to pay their police, and they can't afford to pay their fire departments, and they're making cuts to city services. So it's very difficult for them to say, we're going to dedicate those city services to you. And if we are, we're going to make you pay for their overtime. And so I think that makes it very difficult for race operators who are operating at like really teeny margins to say, yeah, I can afford to do that. So I think that's why you've seen a lot of these permits go away, is just, or races go away, it's because of permits.
Yeah, no, obviously I live in an area where we saw like a big decrease.
Do you know why in your community? Have you heard?
Well, like you just said, like things got really, like staffing's a huge issue here. Costs skyrocketed here. I think the Bay Area was hit harder by the pandemic. So we lost like a lot of and to your point, the cities are struggling to kind of, so it's all those things. But there's people who want to do races. So.
I know. And I really, look, I'm a huge optimist, like to a fault. Like I always believe that, that good will prevail and that opportunity will come back. And I think it is a pendulum swing. I think that we do need younger people to come in and say, I want to produce a race. This is another reality, is that a lot of our race directors have been race directors since the 90s or early 2000s. They started in their middle age. They're tired. They don't want to get up at 2:00 in the morning, and their kids don't want to run their business, and they just don't want to do it anymore.
Sure.
So I think that we need to help encourage more young people to get into operating in the sport.
All right. So what else besides multi-sport nationals do you have?
Woo!
Where should we look for you this year?
Okay, I'm kind of having an existential crisis of like, what am I going to do? I was registered for Roth and Wildflower, but I was doing it with a couple who tragically lost their home in the California fires. So I've deferred everything to next year. So I'm kind of like trying to figure out what I want to do. Wishing I had qualified for Kona. What an incredible year!
You want to do the last all women's? Yeah,
it's a dream. Yeah, it might be a little late to qualify, but so who knows? But I think I need to find one more big epic race. Okay. I've got a couple big mountain bike races. I'm doing a Firecracker 50 mountain bike race in Breckenridge on the 4th of July, and I'm doing the 3-day Breck Epic, which I think he calls the Epicurious.
Yes.
So I have some mountain bike racing, but I definitely I need more triathlons on my calendar. And yeah.
All right. Well, if people see you out there, they can cheer, they can be very supportive, and we look forward to seeing you on the race courses.
Thanks, Kelly.
I want to thank Vic for taking a break from her busy schedule to come and talk with us about the future of triathlon and what USAT and we can do. And of course, we might not have all of the answers today, but we do know that we need to get more people out at their local triathlons, having fun and loving the multi-sport life. We hope all of you feisties are out having some feisty fun. Tune in next week when OG Sarah True will be joining the host to catch us up on everything she's been up to. And until then, stay feisty.